All right, everyone, welcome to our tea time today. We have an interesting lineup. I don't know if I can get a hold of Richard Bernowski. He was under the impression that we might be doing something special for Easter in terms of company letting you out early or holidays, but we quickly got to the bottom of that, and that is not the case. So we'll see if we can get him. He was supposed to present. But we have James and we have myself here, and we'll go ahead. We can go ahead and get started. So, James, do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I can go first.
Okay, that works.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen real quick.
All right.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you all about some reindexing awesomeness that is going to be coming soon to TIE 3. So you remember that time when you were just about to leave for the day and you got stale content, you got a sad trombone. And so you log into the FE and you open up a Python shell and you find everything and you manually run your reindex methods, and 5 minutes later it all starts working. So remember that time you were in the zone and then QA reports that the page you set up was not working? Turns out it was still content again. Sad trombone. So you repeat the exact same process all over again. So remember that time you weren't on your computer and you got reports of stale content? So you had to get back to your computer, find some Wi-Fi, get on the VPN. You know the drill. So wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to be on the VPN, or we didn't have to SSH into the FE, or look up item IDs manually and type things into a Python shell, or heck, if QA didn't need to wait for the dev to have cycles to reindex things for them? So it's happening. I've created a reindex content bookmarklet, and it allows us to reindex most any content with a single click. There's no need to find the correct objects in the back end or anything like that. And the great part is it automatically drills down. So right now we support sections and layouts, galleries and photos, the various types of hybrid lists that we have, stories, video, and anything else that has a reindex method in theory. So the install, there's a new bookmarklet once in Ellington in the admin documentation bookmarklets section, reindex page down at the bottom. Just click and drag it up to your bookmarks bar, and you'll be good to go. There are some Storyville changes that supports this, of course. So usage, you must be authenticated. If you're not authenticated, we get a 404, and you must be logged in as a super user in order to even view the bookmarklet, and then again for it to actually work. It works on local, FE, tested, and in theory on prod as well. And so how does it work? The bookmarklet makes another request to the same page, and in the response headers there's an object type and an ID, and we can use that to look up the appropriate objects. And there's a new app that I've added called Medley DevTools that handles these types of this lookup and the indexing. And we simply JavaScript alert out the response. So I wanted to show you a quick demo of it. Of course, Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So here I've got a section page up, and I'm tailing Medley debug logs right over here. And so I hit reindex this page, and it pops down a little H1 that says it's reindexing. And in a minute or so, it should start, a lot of things should start popping by over here. And so what it's doing right now is it's looking up the section. Since sections can't be indexed, it looks at the layout, is what it goes into, and then it starts drilling down all the lists, all the slots in there, and then further drilling down right there. And just reindexing content. So if you index it on a gallery, it'll go through and reindex all the photos. And so these are the logs right here, so you can see it, finished indexing, a link at this time, and things like that. We got probably mostly links on this page, I think. Here we have a fast auto list. For fast auto lists, of course, it doesn't hit Melville or anything like that. It only goes on the pinned items and things like that. Yeah, it works on every page that I've tested it with, the different types of contents. If you find any bugs or have any questions, let me know, but I hope it'll help save you all a lot of time. Any questions?
I have a question. What's the Tie3 specific part of this?
Well, it's going to get merged into Tie3, which is my understanding is we usually do keep DevTools out of it being into Tie3 and eventually master, but we've got an exception made with this one. And so I've been working on it for like a couple of months and trying to get it through the process, and I finally got it off to QA, and QA has been able to test it. And so, before that, I could only use it locally if I checked out the correct Storyville and Ellington branch locally. So now it can be used on FEs and what have you. Once it's in F3, we'll all be able to use it everywhere.
Hey, that's really amazing. I wonder if it does it work with Solr 3 stuff or is it just like JP2 sites?
Right now, I think it's just calling the reindex method on everything, and so right now I think it's only it's using the Solr 4, I think, the AWS Solr 4, and the actual view that's reindexing everything. But I'm sure we could find a way to make it support both sites. I haven't really had any experience with the other sites, non-JP2 sites, but if there's a way I could easily modify it, I'd love to learn how to.
Yeah, I think there is, and Aaron, he had some audio issues. I know he would notice off the top of his head, but there, when you do a reindex, I've seen people pass like Solr 4 or like various queues like that, or not queues, but I guess Solr instances. But I've seen that before. Yeah, I've seen that reference before. Did you have to use any of those references when you did reindex?
Yeah, so it's using the AWS _ Solr 4, I think.
Okay.
This was originally based off a script that I think Aaron wrote that's up on the wiki somewhere. And then Dennis modified it for his needs, and then I took it, modified it, and actually kind of integrated it into the system.
Now this is really amazing. And how did you look at the logs?
At the logs, so I just did tail-f to the medley debug log and grep for index, because otherwise you get a whole lot of information that's not really relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So after everything is indexed, obviously finished indexing, yada yada yada. So it's an easy way to kind of make sure that it's all getting indexed.
Nice. Can you please post that line in the chat?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
And the IRC, I imagine.
Yeah. And did you put this anywhere on the wiki? This would be a great PSA. This would really be useful for a lot of people, even QA people as well.
I haven't yet. I was going to wait until we could all actually use it, because right now it's on its own branch.
Uh-huh.
I was planning to kind of make it be known once it's readily available. Because right now you'd have to merge, you'd have to make sure you couldn't actually use it on the FEs unless you deployed it, and then there would be the risk of it accidentally getting merged if we didn't clean up Git. So we don't want that to happen, but I will as soon as it's merged in.
Okay. Awesome. That's really, really good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions for James? Okay. So yeah, any of you can, if you have cool stuff like that, that's probably one of the cooler things I've seen in a while, as far as something that developers can use and QAs can use to help test and debug things and develop. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and go, and we can really take our time here. I haven't seen Richard Bernowski show up. He'll probably be at the next tea time, but it seems like he was under an impression about Easter festivities. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. And what I'm going to talk about is just some random front-end development stuff, kind of like whatever comes to mind. So feel free to ask questions as I'm going through this. So I guess one thing kind of where I want to start is, does everyone see my screen?
Yep, I can see here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so let's say if I'm doing some front-end development and I want to design a widget, like where do you start out from? So you see this breaking news banner here, and it's brought to you by Ad, and Tiger Woods will play in Masters. Let's say if I need to make something like that. And there are just many ways to do it, but I think maybe we could just do it right now. I can show you how I would do it, but first of all, it really helps to have a Photoshop file of the design, because you can actually get the measurement in pixels of how big it is and maybe any images associated with it. And there's also a cool thing you can do once you have Photoshop. And if you find out that you're having to design or develop against do some front-end development, you can ask your boss to get Photoshop, and they'll send a request to CSC, and then you can start doing this type of stuff. So let's just say if I want to develop something like this live video right here, the first thing I would do is kind of right-click on it, or let me see, I think I would have to select it and right-click on it. Okay, and then you have this thing called layers in the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner of the screen, where it kind of breaks down the page in parts. So you see head banner here, drawer, and let's say if I select head banner here, you'll see in the right-hand side of the screen that it selects head banner. And really what I do from this point is I will copy the CSS. So that's one of the features in the newer Photoshop tool. You can actually copy the CSS from a PSD. And that's really helpful too, because you could go in here, and kind of paste it and see exactly what fonts it's using, the images, and all of the CSS markup. So you won't have to spend hours trying to say, oh, I think it looks like blue, but I'm not sure. And from this point, you can like look at a Photoshop file, and you can do measurements too. So if I select this little square here, I can say, okay, how big is this element? And I can kind of measure it like this. And then I see that it's about 965 pixels by 121 in height. So I would probably go to my CSS file and start putting in those values in the width and the height here. So it's really good to have Photoshop so you can do this type of detailed measurements and get the CSS classes you need for that. Have any of you guys used any Photoshop or anything in the past to do something like this?
Yeah, I've used it a little bit, but it's still mostly a mystery to me.
Yeah, it's a mystery to me too. Like when designers they give me this is probably the only usage I get out of it, but I've seen them do some really complicated things with the layers over here, putting layer on layer and making copies of it. But it's very feature rich and pretty awesome. So I would do that to get the details, but as far as building out the HTML, And I've talked with the CSV developers about how they would approach something like this. If they built a widget, let's say a widget like this, like how would they go about it? And after talking with one of them, he said, well, I would just kind of logically break this up into like divs. So this right here, breaking news and Tiger Woods would be a container. So actually, let's code that out some. If I go to, okay, I have all of this. I have a body. What I'm doing here is creating a template that we can use to create a widget. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Whoa, this is a lot of code. Oh man. All right. So scripts. Okay, we can leave that in because I might need them for something else. And I want to make sure that my body tag is closed. Yep, it's closed down here. Okay. So this is a template and this Bootstrap. It has some basic Bootstrap installation here. And this is a responsive framework. HTML framework is the most popular one out there now. So you can take this and easily make something responsive. So I can show you that as well as we build out this widget. The first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I can kind of get to the page. So, and I should see, okay, I see a background, right? And that's because I'm including some CSS probably. And to tell you the truth, I'm going to keep that CSS file and just make it blank. So I'll do that. Okay, so it should go blank. So you see that? So the basic structure of a page like this is you want to include, if you're using a framework like a Bootstrap, the CSS for it, and then your own CSS. So this is just custom CSS. And then you have a body class here. And now you're really ready to make the widget. So what were we looking at? We were looking at the home page. Breaking, kind of like a breaking news type of thing here. So I think to demonstrate the idea of responsiveness with this framework, I think I'm just going to create this box here. So Tiger Woods will play in Masters. And there are a few ways you can go about it. You could just simply, if you can inspect element, and it's really best to start from scratch, but if you're really lazy and you're just doing a prototype, you can simply go here in Chrome Inspector and select it, right, and get the HTML structure. And if you do that alone, that won't be enough to give you the styling. So let's say if I copy and paste that here, what do you guys think we'll see? Any ideas?
Mostly plain unstyled text.
Yep, exactly. So if I go here and refresh it, you see it, but it's unstyled, which makes sense. So that brings me to something you could do pretty cool here. And on the right-hand side, you see a bunch of styling, and you see classes that are crossed out, and some styles may apply or may not apply. So if I take the first few styles here, width, min, height, padding, bottom, that might not be all of the styles for that element. So one cool thing you can do is go to Compute It, and you can kind of get a list of all of the applied styles. You see? And what you can do is you can take it a step further and just copy it from here, the CSS, all the way to the top, and copy that and get all the styles you need. So if I paste that in my style sheet, you can kind of see how it did that. And that doesn't look, well, that doesn't look too good because it's not formatted. So it copied this but I still need to give it a class, a CSS class. So let's just say if I just did something like this and associated all of these styles with that class. But did you guys know that you can copy all the styles like that? You could do something like this. Okay, so we do have all of the styles associated with that box. And I expect the styling to look a little better now, but not perfect. And that gets me to another tool we could use to do this. So if I refresh, you see how it's kind of centered a little bit, and I don't have the box around it, the border. So I had to do a little more digging to see where that border comes from. And okay, so it might come from another style. So this is what's interesting, because I copied all the styles for that element, but the style for the border might be defined a level higher, like here. So you see that? And this is me. You have padding, you have position, and I don't see a border yet, so you can probably keep going up until you see it. And here it is, box sizing, border box. And then let me just see what would happen if I copy that. And it's playing around with the CSS until you can get what you're looking for. But now you can see you can copy and paste to get the styles. Okay, so that, I thought this might have been a border, but it's not. But I'm thinking that you guys get the idea of that. So that brings me to this. You can copy things one by one here. You can go through and copy all the styles, but that's still cumbersome. So what you can do in this case is select the element you're interested in, and then you can use a tool called Snappy Snippet. Has anybody used that one before? Okay, so it will copy not only that HTML element, but all of the associated styles and what was inherited, and it will send that over to a tool like, so I can go create a snippet from an inspected element, and that will send that over to something like CodePen or JSFiddle or JSBin. So let's send it to JSFiddle. All right, so you see how it's sent over. It sent over some CSS. It sent over like some of the HTML. It looks like some of it got chopped off, right? Maybe the tool isn't smart enough to parse that. So I want to see what happens if I just try a different element here. If I go here, okay, so I'm going to send that to Snappy Snippet. And this is a plugin for Chrome, by the way, if you're interested in it. So if I'm going to create a snippet from that. And did it finish? Yeah, this looks a little more like it, because you can kind of click, look in here, and you can see the HTML that it generates and the CSS. And it creates several of div 2, div 3, div 4. It creates a few like divs that it uses sequentially starting from 1. So if I go to JSFiddle, you can see what it does. So the HTML is in the left pane, the CSS in the right pane. And it gets all of the styles associated with it. And this might be a good starting point for you, and then you can start tweaking things from this point. So let's say, and then you can just start changing things. See how that changed. And then you can play with some other styling here. Yep. So that's a Snappy Snippet. You can download it on Chrome as a plugin. So I thought that was pretty cool, and the fact that you could just copy CSS. But one of the main things is if you're designing something like this, let's go ahead and make it from scratch. Now I showed you a way to make it from the browser, and you can play around with it. But usually I like to make things like this from scratch. It's just cleaner. So I'm going to delete all of that. Delete this, and now we're getting into the HTML. So I'm going to make that bigger. If I could do something like say a div, and this is the way I approach it. I'm going to make breaking news brought to you by. This is a div. This is a div, and they're on a row, and this is another div right here, and they're all within a container. So pretty much like each section right here is a div. So I have class equals container. And that's a standard Bootstrap class. It provides minimum styling. Like it'll just it'll either add padding or take away about 15 pixels or so. And then when you add a column, it does the opposite of that. So here we go. So we have a div, and then we'll just do like that. And this would be the div for what I'm making here. And then the next thing you want to do is a row. So for Bootstrap, like the main elements you have are like a container, a row, and then a column. And then the columns operate on like a 12-column grid. So going based on that, this will be row. And I usually like to give each little section a class name. So I would call this, we could call it breaking news. Breaking news. And it's good to separate or use a delimiter of a dash when you're making a class name. So if I go here, so we have a container, we have a row, and then we can see what that looks like. It won't look too pretty. Okay, hello's there. And I want to get rid of that other stuff that I had, which is, it stops here. That goes away. So we have hello. That doesn't look too nice, but it's a start. And then we go into like some more Bootstrap specific classes. So row is a Bootstrap class too. And let me show you this right here. Some of the styles that is already applied. So you can see how Bootstrap applied the row class here. And it says a margin of -15 and -15 right and left. And that's because the container added a margin probably. So we have a container, and you can see how it added a margin here, or padding rather, of 15. And I want to see if, there it is, so the container class, and you can see it's coming from the Bootstrap file here, CSS file. All right, so moving on. I want to show you this too. You see the width? You'll kind of see it adjust. You see how the width is adjusting from 720, and then I adjust down on 661, and then 421. And that's the thing with Bootstrap, that the grids are auto, the width, so it doesn't use any fixed widths. So it's inherently responsive. All right, so if I did this div column, and then the breaking news, let's see, if I go back here, I would definitely say we'll make this 2. We're working on a row of 12. So this would be a 6 column, this would be a 6 column, this would be a 12. So plus equals and right here, extra small, they have a classification where they group breakpoints based on like device types or class sizes. So like from breakpoint 0 through 767, you have a extra small classification, and that means that this style will be applied to that and up. So and they have the practice of developing mobile first. So if I specify this class for extra small screen, it will cascade upwards. So you'll kind of see how that works a little more later. So if I have div here, all right, so I have that, and then I have another div for the add. All extra small 6. And then div. So this one would be, what do you want to call that? Call it breaking news. Breaking news, and then this one will be ads. And then right here, we'll have a 12 column, right? And then it would just be this here. All right, so I'm going to pause and let's see, can anyone explain to me what I'm doing here?
I think you said it's a 12-column grid, right?
Yeah.
And so you're filling up each row. Does Bootstrap handle incomplete column numbers? So if I only say have 8 columns in a row?
Yeah, that's a good question. It will just make an assumption, and it will fit the screen, and with what you don't have, and it also handles where you say, you know what, I miscalculate, and I may say 7 columns, which equals 14, but it'll put the other one on the other row. So let me show you an example with something like that. So if I do this here, so you can kind of see how I have my 6 column right here and 6 column right here. And actually, if I do, I can barely see it, so I'll just do this. Font size equals 30 pixels. So if I do that and just make the font size bigger, and then let's say going to your question, what if I did something like this? If I miscalculated and I did this, right? I expect breaking news and ads to still be on the same row. But you see how it kind of went in some? So there's still extra column space here that can be used. And the main thing is once it goes over 12, it'll just overflow. So if I made this 8, what do you guys think would happen?
Would it go on to a new row, maybe?
Maybe. What does anybody else think?
I was going to say the same thing. Next row.
Next row? Why is that?
Although 4 and 8 is 12.
No, it's going to be the same row, actually.
All right, let's see who's right. Yep, same row. Why is that?
It's the same, adds up to the same number as the other column.
Yeah,
so they both match. So they cover the same row. What is the maximum number for columns?
It's 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, yep, that's a good question. So it's 12. So if I do, like, I make it 13, what do you think will happen?
This one I think is going to be next row.
Okay, and it is. So you see how that happens? Awesome. So you are exactly right. And you can kind of see how we already have something responsive where we resize the window, and you see how it kind of responds here. And then you can just kind of see the width changing. 720, and then 685. And you could totally do some slick things here where you can say on the smallest viewport, which is 0 to 768, you could hide this. You could hide. So let's hide. Let's do this. Does anybody know how you would do that?
You want to hide it at a certain.
Yeah, when it's extra small, when the browser is within that extra small range, I want to hide this.
I think there are parts in the code where we do it using Hanka, using jQuery and JavaScript, but I haven't seen it done with just purely CSS.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's a good point too. What you can do is, I'll show you this and I'll speak to Mason's point. So actually, I put in the syntax hidden dash XXS. What do you think that would do?
Hide it on extra small screens.
Well, let's see if that's true. Yep, it goes away.
How does it define extra small though?
It defines it by a media query. Here you go, the min width. So it uses media query. This is it here. So when the minimum width is of the viewport is 768, it will apply that style, or it will hide it when it. So that's what it uses. It uses a sequence of media queries. So you can kind of see here. This is the 992 one. So there's a 768 to 992, and that's classified as a small screen. And these are just defaults, by the way. They can be overridden because it may not accommodate every screen. So and to your point earlier, Mason, you can also you can hide elements by actually using backend code, where you kind of use a library like Warful or something else to detect what kind of, it does some browser sniffing and it detects what type of device you're on. And if you're on a mobile device, it will say that, and then you could actually take out or add HTML elements. But if you don't use the backend logic, and which is a hassle to maintain in the first place, right? Always updating your libraries to match, new devices coming out like every day. If you don't take that approach, you can do it like here using CSS, and basically it's probably just doing something like display none. So simple CSS on that. And something else I want to show you guys is, so we covered hidden, extra small. I want to do something where I actually, when I go to maybe a medium-sized screen, which goes up to 992 from 768 to 992. No, that's small. I'm sorry. Medium size is 992 to 1200. So when I go up to medium, I'm trying to think of what we can do here. Okay, let's do this. Let's say when we go to medium, I want to show an additional column because I have additional bandwidth. All right, so I can do this and do that, and then make it a new column and just say extra column. So this says when I go, yeah, does that make sense? So when I'm on a larger screen size, I will actually see the extra column. So let me go to here, refresh it. Am I in that range? Oh, I want to say it's visible. Okay, never mind. I just want to say visible MD. Okay, that'll do it. So I wanted to give you guys, and there we go, extra column. So I showed you an example of hidden and visible. So those are really the main things like of this responsive framework. It's like you're dealing with like a 12-column system. You don't have to equal 12 columns when you're at 12 columns. You can have less or more. And if you have more, it goes to the next line. If you don't use 12 columns, it just has excess space on a given row. And you can make things visible. You can hide them. Something else you could do is you can pull things too. So if I wanted to switch, pull and push columns, so if I wanted to switch ads and breaking news, you could, let me see how you could do that. I wonder if this is the syntax. So let me see. I want to pull the ads. Pull, and I'll probably do about 8 on that, and then push this over 4. So I should effectively, what I'm saying is push this breaking news column over 4 columns, and remember 4 and 8, they're all relative to the 12 column system. It uses percentages to equal 100%, and it breaks that up. It divides that by 12. So if I push this over and I move ads back, which is pulling, those should effectively switch places. And let's see. And it doesn't, because I bet you I have the wrong syntax. So if I did this, let's see if that'll work.
I think you need to move the extra classes down a div.
Oh, what's that?
I think you may need to move the extra classes on the top one down to the column div. Because right now you have it on the row.
That's true. Thank you. I think it's probably a combination of both of those things, possibly. Because when you think about it, you would have to specify the size and the method and the number of columns. So we'll have to see if I need to switch these around or not. But good catch, James. Let's see. All right, so I bet you, and they have really good documentation. So see what the syntax is. Oh, they have the, okay, they have this first. I had these switched around. Do that. Okay, so that will work. See that? And you know what? I pulled over the ads one too much, probably. So if I did something like, let's do that. Yeah, you see how I came back? I didn't know you could push it off the screen like that. So you can, and they have like convenience mechanisms you can use too for manipulating the text and pulling things right or left or offset, column offsets. So their documentation is really good. So if you get here, they go into like the grid system. And remember, oh, this is nice. Look at this. So the media queries for the references or the device types that I was using. So extra small would be here, 0 to 768, then small, and then medium, and then large. And then some grid options. And they show a nice grid layout right here, like 4 column, 3 4 columns, 2 6 columns, and 8 in a 4 column. Or you can make 12 1 columns if you want. A fluid container. I think there was a change made to Bootstrap 3 where it kind of implies the fluid part. I'm questioning if you even need that. I've read random posts on Stack Overflow that you don't. And I'm looking at responsive column resets. I'm just looking at various columns at this point. So this is the offset that I was telling you about, where it would just either, if you do, they have offset for, okay, yeah. It seems like it's just an offset and it comes from the left, so it would probably just add a left CSS class to it. So let's see if that's the case. I want to offset the ads column 4 spaces. So I'm going to shift this ads column. I did something like this. And I'm using extra small a lot because it's like apply this extra small and up. So it'll effectively apply it on all screen sizes until I override it with something else. It took a while for me to get a hold of that concept, so you might have to mull over that one a bit. But I'm effectively pushing this ads column over, so let's see what happens. Oh, it went to the next line. Maybe because there wasn't enough room. What if I might have to make some room for it. I did one and it disappeared. Alright, so I'm going to go back to it and see what it added. I'm thinking it should have probably added a left. Oh, margin left. It adds a margin. And it couldn't push it over. It pushed it over 33%, but it went to the next line because it didn't have 33% on this row. Does that make sense? So I bet you, let me see, if I did, let's make this smaller. Let's just make that smaller in general. Alright, there we go. You see that? Since I gave it 33% more space, it was able to move it over in the same column instead of pushing it to the next column. So it's kind of interfering with what I have. So I'm just going to move it over a little less. That should look a little better. See that? You see how I'm giving it an offset now? You guys are probably sleeping by now.
We're awake. We're not sleeping.
All right. Well, we have about 9 minutes left. I just wanted to show you some basics of that, and I had another speaker, but I figured that I would just ramble for most of the time. Are there any questions? All right. Well, cool. If you guys have any questions, you can IRC me or just rewatch the video, and it'll be nice to put yourselves to sleep if you need a lullaby or something. Or I think one of the coolest things was what James showed us. So I'll be adding that bookmarklet. And any closing remarks before we head out and enjoy our weekend?
No, just thanks, James and Rob.
Yeah, and go team.
Go team indeed.
I agree. Okay, all right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks. See ya.